And Cascade is SKillous.
Lambo singing?
Yeah, I don't know if it was like not along to the intros or what, but it kind of matched up, didn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so this PVZ, as I was saying, it's going to be a real test for SKillous. Like, is he actually a well-rounded player? Apparently, as far as cheesing, he's well-rounded. Got a Forge on the way alongside that Gateway. And that Overlord's going to be like, what you doing? What you up to? Oh, you big boy. That's actually real. Okay, pulling some drones already, taking it seriously.
A lot of drones. Obviously, Pylon here will block them out, and then Pylon here. He's going to put the drones in his first Pylon, so really wants to try and break through this. I mean, the thing is, you have to stop this from getting up now as Lambo, because this is so many drones that you've pulled. If you don't get this up, this is so problematic for you. So, cannon on the way. I mean, this Pylon's going to go down. There is going to be access to that cannon, right? So, this is kind of the problematic territory. As the probe is going to take a couple shots. It gets out. We'll start up some extra cannons. Gets stuck again, though. This is the only probe on the map, CG. It has to stay alive. As I think Lambo is doing well to shut this down. The cannons are cancelled. The Pylon is cancelled. And it's unsuccessful.
Yep, not going to be able to do anything about that natural hatchery. Is not a great look right there. And it really does usually come down to the Zerg not taking it seriously as fast, right? If there's even like a second or two of hesitation from Lambo, or he only pulls 2 drones instead of, the 6 or whatever he pulled, that's suddenly when a cannon is up, and just one cannon is a real big bother. But absolutely taking it seriously, knowing that SKillous can do that, I suppose. And well, yeah, SKillous isn't just like full-on committing. It's like he's got a high ground wall off here. I don't feel so good for SKillous to start.
No, it's just not anything you wanted it to be, right? I mean, anytime you commit to that cannon rush, you're meant to. If forcing the drones down to the low ground to cancel it was good enough, like everyone would do it all the time, right? Because that's like the best case. That's like, yeah, I don't know. This is bad as well. A couple lings get in. This probe is gonna go down, and then you got the lings just gonna be in the main, and you're gonna see the Stargate right off the bat as well. Perfect setup for Lambo. Dream start, really.
Yeah, all the details, man. I want to say it's not possible to come back. It's only so much in such a small time, but I feel like this matchup actually is a lot of snowballing, as you don't take any damage from the Oracle. Why you really shouldn't anyways. And then, yeah, the Oracle does a great job of seeing you and scouting for all ins. Well, Lambo could just be like, yeah, watch me get the 70 drones. So you don't do anything about it. So maybe something SKillous is trickier, something along those lines. And the 2-base attack after the cannon rush could also surprise Lambo, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does just try and play this out to the third base. Void Ray on the way. All right, yep. That's a thing. It's a new thing.
I mean, may as well. I mean, obviously the Void Ray is not super crazy. We've seen a fair amount of it lately in PvZ even, but I actually don't mind it here, because maybe you can go even 2 or 3 Void Rays and maybe get aggressive and try and make the game a bit weirder. And even then, even if you don't, one Void Ray can clean out this Overlord just in case Lambo thinks he's far enough ahead to all in. And he keeps it safe too. I kind of like it for the coverage it gives. I think it's fine. Get rid of this Overlord too, so you can hide your follow-up. Might be important if you want to kind of do something weird, because you've been set behind early on.
Well, he is adding a fairly fast Twilight Council, so not into just that third Nexus and letting the game spiral out of control.
Yeah, cancels the Oracle too, so it's a complete fake out. All Voids, probably Glaive. Glaives or Charge Lot. You could go Charge Lot Void Ray. That's very old school. But maybe if you're going to keep on adding a Void, and there's a second Stargate.
Yeah, I mean, you got both his gas and the natural, so I was like, well, it doesn't seem like it would be charged. Oh, you do need gas for Void Rays. All 4. If you're only getting charged.
Maybe it's just Glaives and then a lot of Void. I don't know.
Well,
actually.
It might be charged now, because he's obviously using the second Stargate. That's where all the gas is going to go. But
yeah. I'm just not comfortable with my choice, CG. I just feel like it could be anything right now apart from Blink.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I am really confused by Twilight Council. I was like, oh, he could, go into 3 or 4 Void Rays, which can actually get a bop on a 4th hatch, for instance. Or even find Queens out and then open up more opportunities. 2 Queens fall, 3rd one falls, hatchery falls. But the Twilight Council came down and promptly did nothing. So maybe this is actually him changing his mind. Oh, okay, there we go.
Trying. Okay. I love how he's had us real confused, though. And I mean, if we're confused and we can see everything, who knows what Lambo's thinking? But then again, seeing everything in this case was actually a negative because Lambo didn't even see the
Right.
Twilights, so he can't even be second guessing what's coming.
Exactly. And while that Dark Shrine can be awfully scary, I mean, Lambo's going to have a lair. He's going to be able to build overseers. And like the worst case scenario is that DTs get into every single base and they chop away before the Lings can react. But it doesn't get much worse than that. There's already Spore Crawlers, actually, defending from the would-be Oracle that never came. And I'm sure that's making Lambo kind of question mark. He's like, okay, is it just a cheeky into Void Rays thing, or is it something more?
Yeah, because at some point, right, the Oracle's got to show itself just for information gathering, right? Surely. That's what I would imagine. Yeah. Maybe not.
Well,
I mean, now Hydrogen comes down. I like that. You've got a left for the DTs. It seems okay for Lambo still.
well, yeah, I mean, I think it's fantastic. I don't really know how much Void Rays by themselves, like, I guess you could morph in Archons, but it is going to be mostly a Void Ray defense against whenever Lambo attacks. I guess excluding him waiting to like 11 minutes to attack. But if he's going to attack, he's going to get upgrades, fourth base, and then attack. I'm not sure what skill's going to have much to offer. Let's see how many Void Rays he can get to by that point, I guess. He is going to invest in that +1. I was a little actually, wondering about the second Stargate, but it is now in production. And that is mass Void Rays against a Zerg player who is... It's not even that they're untouched, it's that they actually got a lead in the early game. And they're already on their way to Hydra. So it's not like, he's trying to mass roaches and is going to go, oh shit. He's actually got something to shoot up here.
Yep, as we do have the Voids making their way across. To be fair, like, I mean, now the Voids are kind of revealing themselves properly. Do you think they can find something? I guess not. There's so many Hydras that are just about to pop, right? Stops the fourth base coming up. That's something. Better than nothing at all.
I suppose.
Yeah, to double spawn multiple Hydras. Yeah, that's a pretty well prepared Lambo in that main base.
Yep. It actually kind of feels like he just knew this was going to be what he played into. He's got a decent amount of queens that he could even bring across the map if he really wanted to. It'd take a little while, but he could try. Plenty of Hydras, going for that Hydra speed first, too, which is usually more of an aggressive sign than a defensive range. And, of course, he'll be finishing up both, but... Yeah, it looks like he's going to attack. But it is kind of awkward because if the Void Rays find a hatchery and then recall just in the nick of time, I mean, that's where things could start looking a little bit different. There's the creep highway.
Yep, I mean, this makes perfect sense for Lambo to just kind of go 66 drones. He didn't even bother trying to put a drone back in fourth base position, so, yep, just get across the map. I mean, this is so Void Ray dependent, but is there a possibility if SKillous gets Storm? Is there some possible hope? Surely not. There's just so much for Lambo, whether there's Storm or not.
I don't think so. It'd have to be like 5 storms, but like perfectly timed too,
Yeah.
Which he's not gonna have.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Charge also not quite done. Hydra's going into the front. 1 storm looking all right. We even got transfuses coming in. That's a lot of shield batteries. Then here's a couple more storms almost available. But that is a 60 supply lead for Lambo.
Yeah, and it's like a good 60 supply. It's not like roaches, right? It's like Ravages, it's Hydras. The Queens are here as well. I mean, it's a very defensive position. That is, I mean, as good a Storm as you're going to get. Right dead center on everything. Storm on the right side there hits the Queens. That one I'm not a fan of as much. Dude. But you know what? The supplies are getting closer. Now the Void Rays are going to start turning it around.
Oh my god. Oh my god. If I was Lambo, I'd just ask for a buff right then and there. That's actually kind of crazy. Couple of things though, right? Like Storm did finish in the nick of time, and he did have the High Templar survive long enough that they didn't stack their storms. It's really been a very different scenario. Also, all the shield batteries finished literally as the engagement happened. There was a lot of last second things that heavily impacted that fight. And then also, nods to SKillous' control to make sure to keep those Void Rays alive. Because maybe it would have been tempting to try and just burst everything down where your shield batteries are also fully charged. And he actually pulled them back when necessary, let the storms kind of ride themselves out, and then came in after the anti-air was pretty much gone. So I can't believe it.
Lambo doesn't have a fourth base, so he kind of has to build like just more units for the moment, and then go into drones a bit close to this fourth base finishing. But Yeah, obviously his units aren't really set up well right now, and he's out on top of this hatchery. It will not go down, but it's a good way just to kind of pull Lambo back a bit, because SKillous did just have his own 4th base cancelled, so nice to be able to force him back and maybe get ready to actually take a 4th. Is that probe heading to the top left-hand side? I think it is, so maybe even going to take the 4th top left and play from there. So SKillous, equal on supply as we speak, and I mean, Lambo's teching up right now. He's got a 78 drone. He's going to get that Bane speed started. But obviously, for the moment, SKillous is in a really fantastic spot, and we'll see if he can do anything with this. The only thing I worry about a little bit is if he just sits back and really does nothing, because then the Bane speed comes in and a lot of setup time comes in from Lambo, and maybe that allows him to get some answers on the field for what SKillous is playing.
That is the concern. You take the storms out of the equation, and it's a much easier fight to take when the Hydra's still left alive. Ling's on top of the shield batteries and the cannons. I mean, that would be the ideal situation. But if SKillous is going to play this nice defensive game, then I think Lambo is going to have to just, go up to more technology, not just depend on Banelings connecting and Hydra's getting into a nice concave. So infestation pit should lead to a hive. There it is. Viper is going to be really helpful here. Void Ray is notorious for stacking. They just stack faster now that they're faster. And even if they aren't necessarily being parasitic bomb, they could at least be yanked away and start fights really well for Lambo. So, I mean, just transitioning into full late game, aren't we? Right into the late game PTZ. Lambo might have dedicated a lot to that push, but he is recovering as his SKillous just continuing to macro.
Everything up on the top side. There's a couple of starts charging forward across the file on the ramp, and we've seen a feed beacon and another Stargate continuing up as SKillous just sets up for a little later stage of the game. These Zealots maybe could have done a bit more than just 7 area AFK, so that's a nice catch for Lambo, but he doesn't even get all the kills. Okay, now he's going to go chase them down, but it's given SKillous a lot of time to set up in the middle of the map, just moving down, and there's really nothing to slow SKillous down at the moment on this. Well, I mean, there's nothing close. Everything's on the left side still.
It's going to be kind of scary, though. This is an army that could be surrounded. You lose your storms. All right, here we go. Actually, it's going to happen. Storms on the right to stop the Lings from killing them. The Banelings need to be more on the right side. It's almost a 360 surround. Banelings on the left still not grabbing the storms. And that's a few more left over. So far, good enough control. 2 storms aren't really doing a whole lot there, though. And I think you got to be... I mean, not quite. And actually, the question is, are the Void Rays now good enough with the Archons?
Yeah,
the supplies are really telling a tale here.
He had that one full energy high template that just didn't quite show up beneath the army, and that's where the last couple of storms came in. And now we're talking about 12 drones dead. Hatchery on the far left side goes down too, and Lambo's going to type GG. What a turnaround from SKillous as he wins game number 1. That was not really meant to happen, Zombie Bro. I mean, I even asked the question as Lambo's marching across the map, like, is there a way? And it's like, well, no, maybe, like in a very rare occasion. And SKillous pulls it out of the bag, and he actually looked like really good while doing it. Like, this wasn't like, oh, he just held on. It's like he held on with style.
Yes, he did. I mean, that was excellent reading into what his opponent was doing. I think it was maybe a little bit obvious once that 4th base, already felt like it could have been faster if Lambo really wanted to macro, first of all. And then second of all, seeing the Hydra so well prepared. So that was the timing he needed to build those shield batteries, which were crucial in his defense. But even with everything going correct after, that point, like, it just... Cannon Russian failed. His Void Ray harassment did nothing. His DTs didn't do anything. Everything pointed to a big, Ling Hydra +1 Queen involved bust actually working. It really did, but I guess not dodging enough storms or coming in from enough angles or just underestimating the power of Void Rays. That's what my issue is. I underestimated the power of Void Rays. I
mean, it was also the fact that once that attack started, other things went well for SKillous, because then the DT did come in and kill 7 drones, right? And then he did start to get some better fights, obviously. I mean, obviously the game kind of flipped around in that moment, but then it felt like everything went SKillous' way, and yeah, SKillous up 1-0. That was kind of unexpected, honestly, the way it played out. We're going into Jagannatha map too. Obviously, this is, I think you look at TVZ, right? And Terran's like, please don't make me play Jagannatha against Zerg. But in PvZ, the pros players seem to quite enjoy this map coming into the best of 3s. It happens a lot of the time. And to me, that's just because it gives them the chance to maybe set up into a nice long game, lots of Stargate units, ZG. Maybe maybe time for a 20-minute game for this best of 3, because we've had one in every series so far.
I mean, probably. With the way that SKillous played that first game, I could definitely see him going eagerly into even later game air toss tech on this map. In the bottom left, as the red Zerg down 1, he is a Lambo.
In the upper right-hand side from Cascade, we've got SKillous.
Yeah, there is the whole discussion on pronunciation in the community about this map, and it's something like Juggernaut or something like that, kind of like Juggernaut.
I'm so glad you responded to that with what you did, because I was like, that is the perfect excuse I need not to make a fool of myself saying it. So thank you very much, CG. I will just continue to say Jagannatha. Sometimes I mix it up. I say Jagannatha or Jagannatha.
But I found it funny when people responded with, it doesn't matter. It's pronounced Zerganatha anyways. That's the proper response. Yeah. Yep. Anyhow, so as you were saying, though, that's more like a TVZ thing. And, I guess SKillous not afraid of it.
No, honestly, I do see it coming to a lot of PvZ best of threes. I think Protoss really like it. Just with the way the meta is perhaps right now, where they feel like they can get 4 bases pretty nicely. They can defend those 4 bases, and I think they feel pretty good going into a later stage of the game. So yeah, I see this in a lot of best of 3 PvZ, which again for me means that they most like it at least more than other maps. So
well, I mean, there's some things I guess that are nice for it as far as the setup for 4 bases. But actually, I want to see how SKillous plays it before I talk about some of the features of the map, right? Because if he's going to play into Stargate, it's going to be well, it doesn't matter what's happening in the terrain because they're going to walk over the terrain or fly over the terrain anyways. But he's going to do something far different, more ground-based. And we can talk a lot about how frustrating some of the points on this map are for actually both races. I don't know how Lambo's feeling after that last game. I thought maybe his camera would reveal a little bit more, but it was actually pretty okay with everything that went down. Recognized that the all-in didn't work, and anything from that was going to be difficult. Possible, maybe, if he had gotten a really fantastic surround on that last fight, but a bit unrealistic. And perhaps as the very experienced player on this stage, he's going to just try and forget about it and move on. But that's a great feeling. We talk a lot about how Lambo wants to prove himself as another top Zerg in the region. Certainly top 3 when top 2 is pretty much taken. And then kind of always still falling a little bit short. He's been getting better every season, I do believe, and proving himself again. But he's just falling shorter than you would expect every time. And falling to SKillous, even with SKillous' performance so far being so fantastic, it would not be Lambo doing poorly as much as SKillous doing fantastic. I'm guessing Lambo still wouldn't really appreciate it.
Yeah, what's really tough for Lambo as well is that I feel like the last 2 matches after this one are really tough for him in this group. So he has to play Hero Marine. And if Lambo loses today, Hero Marine and Lambo are 3 and 2. They all kind of fine to be top 2 of the group. But if you lose, you're probably not in playoff contention at all, coming down to the last play day. And then in the last play day, Lambo actually has to play Goblin. Skillous has to play Hero Marine. So the top 3 in this group right now are they really have some tough matches ahead of them. And this could get this could turn into a really exciting run to the finish line for playoffs here in Group C.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I mean, you're not so much talking about falling out of the group, which would be devastating, but just as far as top 2 or top 4 can be a very big difference. Double Stargate. All right. I mean, I kind of anticipated it. Just the way that last game worked out so well for him. But we get the confirmation before Lambo does. For Lambo, not going into Overlord speed, not getting his link into the main base, just seeing kind of typical gas timings in the natural. It's going to be a while before he figures this out for sure. But as I mentioned last game, it almost felt like he had an idea. He kind of just knows how SKillous might be playing today.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit rough if you don't find out about it, right? Because then things can absolutely go a little bit haywire a little bit quickly, right? If you don't know about it, you kind of start building some roaches that you don't really need. Everything can kind of fall apart very quickly. But, to continue with your point, right? If you just kind of think this is how SKillous is going to play that, that kind of meta of playing your opponent, I think this is where SKillous maybe is a bit predictable right now. And especially on this map, because I really think this map is like very Stargate friendly anyway. So I'm not too worried for Lambo not seeing this just yet. We'll see if he can start to figure it out at some stage, but yeah, seems unlikely unless something really shows up to kind of, force SKillous to reveal those voids.
Yeah, I wonder if even just a single void, though, Like, it may be scary just to go off of that because plenty of people are only going one void as an opener still. Like, there was a lot of it when it was first patched, and then it kind of died off, and then went back to being a lot of it, and now it's like a stylistic thing. But regardless, like, you could at least look into it a bit. With 8 roaches on the way, I mean, just covering his bases, even though we know he doesn't really need them. And there's that Hydralist 10. So I would expect not doing the same all in. And I think the drones head towards the 4th base, so all right then. But it's so scary. Like, either you try and bust them on 3 bases when they're going for void rays and think, oh, I can do this, and then you don't, like last game. Or you're like, well, I guess I can't bust them, so let's play into the super late game, which is also very intimidating. Actually, as the continued discussion about PvZ late game goes on. This is actually a bit scary. Not enough queens. 3 plus a spore. 4? Okay.
Spore helps a lot, right? I know the spore can be hit by that prismatic alignment and obviously get powered up against it, but yeah, you see this hatchery going to get targeted down. That's nice. Yeah. I mean, there's actually a lot of void rays as well right now, isn't it? Like, I know this has just been slowly sneaking up on us, but that's 7 void rays just sat there, CG, and I mean, yeah, no Hydras nearby yet. Not looking great.
They're being made, and once again, just a little bit of that preparation in the main, seeing where things could go. So the Spore Crawler is there, Hydra's repositioning. Once again, going to that Hydra speed first, but with double evolution chamber, and then I think a real intention to take a 4th base. That is just him wanting to catch up to the Hydras, as opposed to being more of a sign of like aggressive versus defensive. Another canceled hatchery does suck, especially because he's not grabbing any of the void rays, just getting him a little bit weak.
Just free damage for SKillous, right? It's just these voids are going to get damage again and again. At this one, you're kind of forcing Lambo to play 6-7 drone Hydras, which is obviously what went so wrong for him last time. But I mean, I don't think you can just walk across the map this time on Jack and Napa of all maps. So, being held to 3 bases, SKillous is starting up Storm. I think SKillous is kind of laughing his way to the bank right now for this game too, because he has gotten so much done early. It's obviously not a 1 game, but his position is improving by the second, as long as that 4th base is up and running.
I'm very curious how like an actual late game is going to go, though, or mid to late game, whatever you want to call it. Lambo was recuperating from a failed attack, and while he almost got into a position that he could win, if he was actually in position, maybe it could have been very different. Maybe he could have at least stalled the push and gotten up to actual Vipers. Now, even with double cancel hatcheries, and that really does not look great, it's still a better position for him to go into the late game. And I want to see what the control looks like there. This is another test for SKillous. Very late game scenario. How good is he in it? I would expect quite good, to be fair, since he's the one pushing this style of play. But I know Lambo, once he can get comfy and he can start really making some things work. We'll see. I don't know. I'm actually kind of convinced myself. I'm like, okay, no one. You know what? No, I am worried for Lambo.
Yeah.
What? No, SKillous has got this.
Yeah, I mean, now Lambo's on his way to Hive and a Lurk, and right, we're starting to see the things that bring us into like the normality of like a Zerg late game, but it's just how much SKillous has gotten done. I mean, he lost a Void Ray, but he killed a couple. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you think about how long that 4th base didn't come up for, SKillous is mining really well compared to what he maybe should have been mining. Yeah, and obviously now the fleet peeking comes in, so maybe we're gonna get to this stage for a little while where Lambo's army's like, okay, like I kind of like it, but then you start talking about carrier production stuff starting up, and that's perhaps problematic. Now these voids are going to catch Hydras middle of the map, and I mean, an Overlord came in and maybe even saved some Hydras because the Void Rays turned around in like 4 seconds. So, exciting moment right there.
A little bit of a flub there. Late game it is. Late game. And Lambo, he's going to be pretty much matching it. That big hiccup on his 4th drags him down a bit, but then trying to get to his 5th and maybe even a fairly quick 6th as he starts to bank. Oh, okay, he's going to use his bank on Lurkers first. I mean, we're going to actually have another question of like what is truly better, or I guess whose control is better. As apparently it's not going to be determined in the next couple of minutes who's going to win this game. I guess if SKillous were to lose this army, it'd be a pretty fatal blow to him, but Lambo's not even in a position to really defend against it. It's a handful of queens and more than a handful, but handful of Hydras and a lot of queens. Not usually the defense you're looking for, but SKillous isn't going to push the issue anyways. 4 bases to 5, carriers to, well, Hydra Lurker right now. I actually thought that Lambo would go for a double Spire. There's a single one. So.
Yeah, single Spire. No Vipers just yet either. I think those Vipers are obviously going to become very important for somehow trying to find a way to trade efficiently against this air army. And SKillous just drops down into base number 5. There's a little bit of a Berserk attack up on the top. Just a few roaches that will be met by Void Rays. Super Battery going to keep that Adept alive. And, well, that's a goodbye to the roaches for absolutely no gain.
You know, Lambo did threaten us with nothing happening in the first 10 minutes. In the first game, anyways. In the first game's lobby. But...
yeah, and the first thing is, to be fair, I mean, this was kind of, some Void Ray harassment stuff going on. So...
yeah, this is actually really exciting.
It just slowed down a little bit. This is very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I was, I'm surprised this is being committed to. I actually thought that Lambo was going to see a pretty mighty air army with Storms and be like, you know what, not so much. But he is still trying to push through. Storms getting on top of him on all of his army. Queens, Lurkers, Hydras. And while the Lurkers are like, well, I guess we lived through that, what does that matter when the air army is the one that won for SKillous? And by the way, having this fight happen in Acceleration Zone is just freaking weird.
Yeah, I mean, there is still a lot of Hydra Queen here. The problem is the High Templar didn't want to come back into the fight because they're afraid of the Lurkers, right? So the Lurkers kind of saved their position. Okay, I don't like him pushing forward again because now the Storms are going to come down once more. And now to defend this Hydra Queen has to step further forward. And that's why the High Templar are going to get more really valuable Storms. The only thing is the Carrier Interceptor count is so low because it's just not had a chance to rebuild because Lambo keeps the pressure up. So that's a big positive. We still have a few Storms available. Counterattack comes in from SKillous, and I love that because that might just buy him a bit of time and a bit of attention from Lambo to go elsewhere because SKillous is going to lose the 4th base, but I feel like maybe if he just lose the 4th base, just get out of there, like recall to the 3rd, buy a few seconds, and get the Carrier Interceptor count up, right?
Right, yeah. Really. There's one big thing that happened as well that I didn't think was going to, and then I realized that, towards the 2nd, 3rd part of this fight, there wasn't anything to actually take care of those Lurkers. He didn't have an observer. His cannons had fallen. So when the Hydra number did get a little bit weak and there was a moment where the Void Rays could have overpowered a good 3 or 4 more Lurkers and, open up opportunities for the Storms, they couldn't. And then finally an Oracle came through, but it already felt like he had reinforced with enough Hydras. So it is still a very complicated fight. Lambo really forcing the issue, really pushing through, is taking care of the Void Rays now. Intercept is still very low in count. It's a bit of a stalemate for now, and SKillous does have a 5th base that he had set up, so if he does push this back, he's got a chance to macro out, but can he push this back?
Yeah, I feel like SKillous maybe gave him a little bit more than he needed to at points here, but I can understand you feel like you're in trouble, you feel like you need to make something happen. Right now his problem is he doesn't have Storms, and that's just like a lot of Hydras, right? So, what he kind of had, well set up previously to deal with this, now he just doesn't really have it all. The only thing is the Lurker count is, at 1 now, so really not that high. It's just the Hydras are so good, and again, there's just no real Interceptor count going on right now. It's like 5 Interceptors building at a time across the 5 carriers, and that's just not that scary to this amount of Hydras. That's why they're walking into the natural, killing off these probes, killing off this base. Wow. And Lambo looks like he's going to be good to tie us up. 1-1. It was funny because this kind of appeared from nowhere. Like Lambo sort of committed in on that position, like where he is right now, and I think we were both kind of caught off guard that he was wanting to try and push it so hard, but he made it work.
He did. I mean, maybe he also noticed that his Lurkers weren't actually dying, so he was like, oh, I can just continue trying pushing this in. He was rallying actually kind of close to the actual engagement, right? Because a lot of his hatcheries are rallying through double acceleration zones and getting to the front lines fairly quickly with his 4th base situation. So, I mean, there's definitely things that should have gone better for SKillous. That was supposed to be an okay setup for him. He would have loved to have gotten on top of it a bit faster, realized what Lambo was doing, yes. But even with him kind of being surprised, he got the Storms, he had a couple of cannons. He certainly had a decent carrier count, but not being able to take care of those Lurkers, not being able to get those juicy Storms really hurt him. And not being up to, I think, a good enough Interceptor count, too. Those carriers are still a little bit fresh, and that could have also been a very big difference. It was a tight battle, one that I respect Lambo a lot for being able to analyze and say, you know what, I can continue pushing here. Where a lot of Zergs would have been like, nah, choke, Storms, carriers, no thank you. And they just move on to the Hive tech, which would have been a okay option as well. And it might still be an option that Lambo has to go into as SKillous. I mean, it's not a pretty game for him, but I guess his carrier count's now intimidating.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that SKillous was always going to have, that he kind of still has the carry account, right? It's just the carry account never got to be effective because he was adding one carry on at a time, and you're still only having like a handful of interceptors up. Like, it never got to be scary before now, but I don't know, okay, now maybe we can see something out of this as Hydras move around down the left side. Viper, Corrupt has been aired in. I mean, SKillous has 150 supply, which isn't terrible. It's just, I feel like right now he's probably wishing he'd already taken the chance to get that fourth base back up, because he probably could have reset that now or by now. But instead, he's just kind of sitting on essentially kind of like 1.5 bases, and that's not going to do him justice the longer this game goes, of course.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he could have risked getting that Nexus and having it finish now instead of just starting now. But, yeah, obviously he couldn't know that for sure. Especially because Lambo had taken a pretty nice setup on 5 bases before that attack. So it was, pretty healthy 5 bases by that attack. Now it's getting a little more questionable. He needs to get to a 6th, he needs to get to a 7th. But that is exactly what he's doing. And SKillous can't really afford to stop him from continuing to take the map and take all of the bases. Can't do anything about the creep spread. You're just going to see all types of harassment from a mile away. And he's just going to have to hope that his army really is superior, in a defensive position, which that is arguable. That is defensive Void Ray Carrier Storm. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, okay, so I guess you get to draw this out as SKillous. But, I mean, there's also these Corruptors now, right? The Viper's out now. And obviously you get to have this long fight. I like this counterattack actually from Lambo, because there isn't really anything over here left to defend. SKillous is everything down the right-hand side. I just pushing up to the top.
Just pardon me, thank you. I'll get right to the main base. Doesn't really get triggered by the stasis traps either. It's going to force a recall. Let's see how good the recall was. Ooh, that is a lot to recall. Maybe opening up the right side.
Yeah,
yes,
that's exactly what it does. At least he could fly down to the right side if he knew it was coming. A couple of storms of these Hydras X. I mean, you don't get much better storms than that. He just needs something to follow it up. Oh my god, the Hydras are so low.
Yeah, that sucks. Could have been a lot of dead Hydras, a good trade, and would have been also a bit of a double whammy victory for SKillous, because he had the left side almost going for him really well, and the right side he blocked out not just a decent amount of lurkers with that stasis trap, he also made force fields that Lambo didn't feel comfortable going down, knowing that the army could be over here pretty quickly. Vipers are involved now, a couple of feedback to try and save the carrier, but it's not going to work out. I mean, it does mean that the Vipers have to retreat and suck up more juice, but there's actually still Spore Crawlers here, so they don't have to really retreat very far to get more energy.
Yeah, we get maxed out here as SKillous, right? But it's the rebuild potential for Lambo. He's got 4.5k, 3k, he's got 28 lava ready to go. He just needs a half-decent fight, and the rebuild should just come straight across the map to kill. I want to kind of believe in this Carrier Storm army, but I think Lambo knows how to engage this. I think he's got plenty of room to spare. I don't think he's in any rush. He's got all the bases on the map. I want to try and believe in this SKillous comeback, but he's not seeing it right now as EG.
Yeah, it's how does he take a 5th base? Right now, I can't. If he pushes through this, then this is his 5th base, yes, but it's still going to be a struggle. He does push through it rather convincingly. Even the Parasitic Bomb, Spore Crawler is still not going to be enough. SKillous is going to be able to take that base. Meanwhile, Lambo just once again goes right up the middle. There's very little vision in the middle, so his main base is under attack again. This
is just the constant problem that SKillous has to keep dealing with. It's just a super obvious attack path that he's got no real answer to. This is the answer just to truly just go and, I think, basically be all in across the map, right?
I guess so. It is so funny. This is actually what's going to cause him to all in. Instead, his main was wide open, but it makes sense. He's got a decent army supply. He's got okay upgrades, but Lambo really did a great job catching up with double upgrades himself. And he has now lost his production. Might even lose that fleet beacon. Yeah, he's going to try and defend towards the last second. Maybe. Nope, Tempest, you're going to die. But SKillous isn't continuing the base trade, so, what is his plan here?
Just base trade, I guess.
He's kind of waffling. He's
yeah, I know.
Why not?
But, I mean, he's got no production left, so you got to kind of go. The longer you wait, the more spores come up, the more that rebuilds up. I don't think there's anything to really wait for at all right now. I think you just got to commit to it as... I don't know. I'm trying to think of ways that maybe you make this work, as those lurkers are just...
What is happening?
Oh, are they blocked by the things?
What? I guess they're blocked and they're confused. Wow.
What?
Use lurkers.
Wow. SKillous' mineral eye is somehow still alive. As lurker spike, whatever that material is, they need to print that on like siege tanks and stuff, making it like immune to lurker shots. That's incredible. Right. Go down to the bottom right, but I mean, Lambo's slowly losing bases, but I mean, he's losing bases where in the long run it's still okay for him, right? He's still got a huge bank as long as he keeps enough bases alive to rebuild from once he commits to the fight. Skillous cornered in here.
I do actually love how Skillous has been doing it. It looked like he was waffling, but I think he was just trying to make sure he never got caught by the lurkers, right? So it looked indecisive, but it was actually just smart. And the way he played that bottom right was also pretty smart. The recall is going to be very effective, clearing up a lot of expensive units. Not that Lambo is too worried about expenses, and in fact just replaces all of them with 21 corruptors. But I like how Skillous kept his cool during a scenario where I think people would have just been like, you know, F it. Let's just get this over with.
I'm with you. He's rebuilt his production, so he's actually going to be able to put some... How does he have money? I mean, this right base comes up, and I guess that gives him, like... I mean, I guess he's holding 2 base on this right side, and I've just never really appreciated that, but he's got money. He's going to rebuild once again. Oh, this game is a little bit still ECG.
It's a little bit off kilter. It's not that familiar. I don't know how to call this one. It still seems like Lambo has all the options, but really when you look at the bank, you're expecting 0-0 for Skillous, and it's the same bank.
Well, Lambo's bank just half because he just spent a bunch of money, and the thing is now he's only on 43 drones, so his bank isn't getting much bigger. Well, this is going to be a big old fight, isn't it? As Skillous tries to get away from there, the speed zone's kind of helping out. Parasitic bombs are down as he's spending a lot of time fighting lurkers, but obviously the lurkers don't really affect the air fight, as Lambo's already rebuilding 17 corruptors. Void Rays about to be out of prismatic alignment, so the corruptors will die much slower in this. Well, not just so many corruptors, isn't there, but extra voids show up. Enough to somehow maybe turn this around.
I don't know about that. He's got to take the fight. Can't let carriers lose. Remax is going to be a bit better for Lambo. If Skillous maybe had anticipated the fight, had more of a concave, and been able to have his ground units not pounced upon by the lurkers, it could have been very different. That's exactly the power of Lambo's army. It saw an opportunity, it took it, and the storms didn't help out. I think, did no storms hit the corruptors?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Yeah. If you had even like a couple storms on the corruptors, that could have made the difference, because there was a point, right, where the corruptor count was kind of dying pretty quick, but you needed a little bit of storm damage to go out. Man, Skillous made this super, super close from what felt as though it should have never been so close, right?
Yeah.
I have to be worried for Lambo going into a game 3 if this looks even remotely similar, because it almost feels like now we've had 2 games in a row where Lambo's been in a great spot and Skillous turns it around. This time, not quite all the way, but almost.
I agree. I know what you're saying, man. It's like, this was not the cleanup it was supposed to be. It wasn't very clean at all, in fact. And while it's definitely a Lambo victory at this point, Skillous has proven how scary he is in multiple types of games with this late game army. One where he defends an all-in, and that's scary, and then another one where he plays a macro game out from losing 2 Nexus. That's also scary. The last stand isn't going to last very long. Skillous is going to have to admit he's got to go to a game 3.
Yep. This is going to be a game called in a moment or 2, I imagine. I mean, what's Skillous really got? Like an extra... He's got an immortal shows up. Hello, how you doing? GG is called, and Skillous will tap out to give Lambo the tied up 1-1 scoreline. Took a little while to get there. But he does get there. And we get to go to another game 3.
That's fabulous. I'd love to see what else Void Rays can do. All right, they defend all-ins. They live past 2 Nexus dying, although I guess there's a lot of carriers as well. I want to know what that game 3 looks like, man. So let's get the break over with. When we come back, it's the last game of Lambo versus Skillous. We've had 2 pretty long games, and now we go into Submarine to finalize this PVZ. I forgot about that, man. I heard it, you said it, and I was like, well, maybe it's going to be 2-0 anyways. And yet here we are, game 3, after back-to-back Void Ray openings from SKillous. That can't happen on Submarine, right, Wardy?
Maybe.
Yeah.
You know, you could go, maybe not full Void Ray, right? Maybe 1 Void Ray, something. I don't know, maybe Void Ray into, like, Glaves? I kind of like that idea.
Okay, yeah. Not just maybe using the map, right? It's such a different map than their previous 2, but then also trying to surprise Lambo after convincing them, like, yeah, I'm just going to play some macro games. That would be cool.
You know, ZG, after the day, I think getting to see Submarine, I could totally see us getting like a good 35-minute game on this one. We split top versus bottom. People forget that you can actually walk across the map in like 2 seconds, you know. I could see us just like camping it out, turtling up, really see who the late game champ can be.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah,
and
me too. Should we ask them to no rush 15?
I mean, we could. Well, we could have. The game has already started. So
we missed the opportunity. I guess we're just gonna have to let them play it regularly, guys.
Yeah. I would actually love to see it. Like, that would really be the test, wouldn't it? Be like, I'm the best late game player. No, I'm the best. And it's like, we'll play on a map where the rushes is like 30 seconds. And you're like, I don't know if I can prove it there. But I'm eager. I'm thinking that someone has to change things up, but maybe not. Lambo already did try 1 all-in, didn't work, right? So he could be afraid to do it even on a short map like Submarine. In the bottom right, it is that red Zerg, Lambo.
In the other left, our blue Protoss from Cascade is SKillous.
I also kind of forgot that first game. I keep referring to the first game as Lambo's decision, when really it was like SKillous made the cannon rush, which didn't work, but might have set Lambo off and been like, oh, I have a perfect opportunity now.
I feel like there's a thing with games in this event the last couple of days where if you start with a cannon rush, it just doesn't really end very quickly afterward. There's definitely something to be said about that recently.
Yeah, apparently, I know you're referring to Estrella versus Asuna.
Yeah, that was a pretty long one, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I was watching it while I was doing something else, I forget, but maybe I was streaming. But anyways, like, I watched it, and every time I looked over, I'd be like, oh, X person is winning. And then I'd look back to what I was doing, and then look back over a minute later and be like, wait, what? And like the other person would be winning. Yeah. And it happened like 3 times. And I was like, also like, damn, this game's very long. I can only hope we have such beautiful NA matches, Wardy.
Oh, after today's EU matches, NA is just going to be the icing on the cake, you know? It's going to be beautiful. You know, actually, we've got really good matches for NA coming up later. It's going to be sick.
I think so. I am legitimate. Like, I like that NA is weird. But I also think that they just actually provide really great games, a lot of back and forth. So it's still a lot of series to go, even after this one finishes, guys. And SKillous, Lambo, as we're discussing, I guess, way back in the first game. Oh boy, these are the top 2 of the group. I almost forgot for a second. These are the top 2 of the group, and they want to make sure that they stay in that top 2. And it's coming down to Submarine.
So Lambo has to build his hatchery at the 3rd base, which is already a little bit of a throw off from where you might want to be. And he builds up on this top side as well, which is not always the go-to 3rd base either. So, you know, interesting. And now SKillous is going to look to maybe capitalize on that with the Twilight Council, maybe straight into Glaves.
Difference. Yeah. That's what I'm expecting. The Overload would have seen the the warp gate start immediately, but as we've learned, it's not necessarily like a purely indicative, very easy thing for Protoss to fake Zergs out with.
Yeah, I stopped reading too much into that because it used to be like a really big thing, right? Like when Glaves was a thing, like big time. And now it really isn't so much because people go Stargate before and after warp gates. So it's yeah.
I mean, it was like something I like when Rainer was like, yeah, I just still don't know. I'm like, that makes sense. You really still don't know. So, not much looking into it. So, Robo is on the way. He did take probes out of gas. So I'm still was expecting yours in Glaves. Yeah, I was like, where is it? There it is. And something that Lambo's got to figure out as well.
What was the shield battery for? Is SKillous really afraid of something aggressive?
No.
I think he's been very safe because Twilight's obviously susceptible to like early attacks, right? So I think he's adding the battery just for safety's sake, just in case Lambo is going aggressive and SKillous doesn't quite realize it. And there's a roach roaring, which is pretty nice and early. That's not to be aggressive though. It's going to work out really well for defensive timing here.
I think you're spot on. I mean, it's a shorter map. It's certainly one of the weaknesses of the Twilight Council opener. It's a production isn't quite kicked in by a Ling Flood, and that's why it's so effective. And that shield battery plus the Stalker being at the front as well it would give you a lot of time to recover if it was a Ling Flood. It's not, and the shield battery might not be looking too useful, but now we're going to be talking about how much damage the Adepts can do. Lambo has clearly figured things out. I mean, he's got the Roach Horn at a really nice time, with the Spine Crawler coming down, very classic defense. The go-to defense, really. What's more curious, it's more interesting, I think, afterwards. Like, okay, does this do damage? Yes, that's an interesting question, but what is the follow-up? You know, we've seen a couple of Disruptor follow-ups, we've seen Macro follow-ups, we've seen just complete all-in follow-ups.
I've loved the Disruptor follow-up lately, haven't they? That's been something that really showed up recently as well. SKillous gonna go, dives in for the mineral line. He loses 2 of the Adepts, so gets them fully surrounded. Yeah, the rest of the Adepts trade well, but imagine the extra 2 were alive for that much longer. This was not a good dive in for SKillous. Maybe now he'll get a couple drones and a drone pull, but this is like all of his aggression. He's also going to shade into the third, so that at least is good as well. See, it's starting to add up, but it definitely wasn't looking pretty right off the start.
I would say that's not really ideal. I mean, you always got to consider the Lings that died, right, in the defense, of course, so it doesn't look too bad in Resources Lost trade. But, I don't know, once the first wave of Adepts is kind of like gone, once you've cleaned it up and you haven't taken extreme damage, you're able to replenish your forces. It feels like the Zerg player is the one that starts to snowball a little bit more from this position. SKillous is going to go into robotic space, so expecting that Disruptor follow-up could be really cool. Lambo moves across to stop the Warp Prism from warping in, but I don't think he's actually moving across. We know that. We see the drones on the production tab. This Observer seeing the Queens might have had a little bit of a heart attack.
All right, well, Gravitic Drive is on the way up. There's that Disruptors. People have loved this follow-up. So, like I say, it's just become kind of the new way to follow up if you do go Glaives. And now we've got those Zerglings on the map to try and maybe cancel that third base. We'll see how successful that will be. There's Lairs on the way too. So that's the good thing, right? That obviously Lambo's Lair and tech in general is just super delayed.
It's going to be difficult to take care of the Warp Prism harassment. I mean, the Queens are ideally in the correct position, and the Lings on top of the Disruptors, right, before they get some really amazing shots. But yeah, it's not like he's going to have access to anti-air to help with the Warp Prism, which is going to be speedy and zip-zapping around. For SKillous, I wonder if he can actually get some damage done. We've seen really perfect execution of this build. You know, Showtime had like basically a perfect game a couple weeks ago. I forget when it was, and we've seen other people like not able to get anything with the Disruptors. So I think that there's a reason people like it. I still see this as something that, you know, the hands of a master is really where it looks impressive, and everyone else is like, nah, is it really that great?
Yeah, obviously, right? Because you've got to be so good to get those Disruptors to do damage, because it's not just like drop them down, fire, and pray. It's figuring out where you can do that safely while being within a realistic shot of, you know, actually getting in to deal some damage somewhere. You've got to be very active on the map. You obviously can't lose the Prism. There's a lot of finesse to pulling this one off properly. I like those 2 Adepts that just walked in, though, because if they shade into the third and you take the attention to the main, yeah, you know, that's potentially a few drone kills, but Lambo is immediately on top of it. He runs to the third base to defend that. The Disruptor is going to get just the 1 Queen. Now he had the double, but just missed the second shot.
The Warp Prism did take some hull damage, so not sure that's the start that you would want. I think that was also Lambo's first sign that that's what the follow-up was. Of course, he had to take the DT follow-up pretty seriously, so we see Spore Crawlers in every base, and then there's just like the Immortal follow-up, right? But now the Disruptors have revealed themselves, might be even more on point against defending them. I think as soon as you see the Warp Prism speed, you know, but yeah, no shot, no. Something to consider. He's going to invest into double attack upgrades, difficult hooks, just actually that mid-tier layer-based army, while SKillous is just fully transitioning into Blink Colossus, which I actually really like, especially if you get a decent number of force fields. So right now, with the count of sentries being at 5, it's actually not even enough, in my opinion. We're going to see probably more upwards to 10.
Yep. Yeah, you need a lot to make this kind of work out against those Banes. Colossus just need to be in good numbers, right? It's going to take a while to get there, and you guess second Robo's finishing, so you can build 2 at once now. You get up to 3. Even 3 Colossi, though, sometimes you need those force fields, otherwise Banes just roll in too quickly. So, yeah, the call on more sentries, I'm completely with, expecting more of those, and well, we see Lambo. I like his response as well. You know, all of these upgrades, but also moving up to high. Get into those Vipers, and we know how well the Vipers are going to do. Pulling the Disruptors in, cancels their shots, pulling Colossi in, well, then they just die when usually they're very safe. So yeah, I would really love to see some Vipers coming in here.
War Prism has given up on Disruptor drops, now just going some regular drops, but also being corralled into a corner is going to die.
Yep.
Only one Adept is able to escape, and she's not going to do very much. Excellent defense so far for Lambo, who's also spreading creep throughout the map, and as you were pointing out, getting to some really powerful technology. SKillous isn't exactly falling super far behind, but I mean, he gets 3 bases for a long time. He gets to maybe max out once comfortably, and then from then on, it's going to be a bit of a struggle if he can't get this 4th base down. Basically now, he's going to be just overpowered, I think, with economy. Maybe he's going to actually move out. He's got the range of the Colossus finishing up. He's got a War Prism being rebuilt. He is going to move out, at least clear up some creep. But the sentry count never really grew, and he's only at 2 Colossus. And this is scary for me, but he's got some confidence.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that he added the second Robo, and his Colossus production has just been 1 at a time, right? Like, I thought that was going to rise up way faster than it did. Here we go now, an attack on the 3rd base, and well, SKillous has to really respect this. There's a Baneling that comes around the left side that gets an initial shot off, but the rest of the Banes are on the left side, and it's going to get a little bit awkward. Good recall, I think, to try and save something here. He loses one of the Immortals, and I think Lambo got a lot done out there already, though. There's a lot of kills, and SKillous just caught a bit out of position, and then caught out of position a second time around as he moved in to try and defend the 3rd base.
Yep. It was a very strong response, though, making the best out of a bad situation. The recall was something that not many other people would think of, and did save a couple of key units. But this is Lambo really piling on the pressure, getting a canceled 4th Nexus, and having plenty of time to rebuild, even on a small map like Submarine. Not just rebuild Banelings and Ravagers, but also add on those Vipers. And while we have a Templar Archives, we're getting up the Storm. 1 High Templar, now 2 High Templar have literally just been warped in, so Storm's unavailable to them, and feedback, well, yeah, we can only feedback so much with 2 High Templars. This is scary, but SKillous just gotta try and stay true to the defense, and eventually get this 4th base up, which, again, is gonna be canceled.
Yeah, I mean, if you're holding all of this with a 4th base, then I'm a fan, but yeah, now you've also got Lings in that 3rd base and so on, or Banes, and okay, as well, counterattack coming through as well. It's Banes up here, so 20 probes going down. So not only are you not really holding on to the 4th base, you're also just losing workers in the 3rd, so your economy is really in trouble. And do you get this hatchery? Yes. Just. But even that is such a small victory. It feels like oh, you kill off the 5th hatchery. It's like, great. Is Lambo desperate for it? Not really. Not if you don't have a 4th base. So. Good news is Storm is done, so maybe that can have some sort of impact in the next fight.
Maybe they could. Now we're up to 4 High Templars, so Storms and feedbacks are available, and he's also up to 4 Colossus, which are actually together and fighting. So very different direct fights, but more economy loss. 19 probes, 4th base might get canceled by a handful of Lings. He's keeping on to a pretty powerful army, but he's losing everything else. He is down to 33 workers, only on 3 Nexus. His army would have to take a really good fight, and it can do that defensively. It can technically do that offensively, but if he goes offensive, if he goes for the desperate, okay, I can't do anything else, let's just almost base trade it, he's going to be on creep in the middle of plenty of surround opportunities and even blind cloud opportunities, right? It's going to be so difficult for SKillous to get anything done. It just seems like the beginning of the end for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like we've casting kind of the end of SKillous here, but the only thing I'll say is he's got a ton of splash in his army. And look at the army supplies, 120 to 118. Maybe there is some hope. If you get one big fight, it's Submarine. You can walk across very quickly if you win a fight. Maybe you can catch reinforcements as they're spawning. That's how SKillous has to win this game. He's not going to win this in the long run. He's not going to win this going late. He has to win this with some crazy good fights right now. Let's see what he can do as Colossi are going to get yoinked in, but honestly, they get yoinked into kind of like a safe position. The storms are really good, and a second yoink finally on a Colossus as this one's still derping around, but SKillous. That's not a bad start of this fight, and now there's going to be no banelings defensively because, well, you just can't, there's just nothing, you just don't have time to morph them in. 23 of them morphing, there's no lava left over, so Lambo has money he can't spend as well. And he even still just has so much splash remaining, he's going to get a lot of these baneling cancels. CG, is it happening?
They might actually be. That was a really awkward fight from Lambo, exactly what SKillous was hoping for. Now, there's not much of the storms or sentry force fields to provide here. And actually, the just enough force fields create a very awkward choke. Again, these abducts looking quite awkward. One Colossus finally going down, but tons of banelings have been lost actually behind the force fields. This might be doable. The blink has already been used. He's going to try and split the last second. Maybe save that Colossus with the Warp Prism. I don't know if it's actually going to be enough, though. It's so close, but Lambo has so much more production.
Yeah, Lambo's extra injects coming through and everything else just kind of finally rallying together as with so many roaches on the way out now, there shouldn't be a way, right? Zealot Stalker shouldn't be able to fight this. SKillous is going to try and warp in just a few more units. He's going to get a few more Zealots in this, but the roach count is a bit too high, and he nearly made it happen against EG, where he was just so dead. And that one hope, that one fight actually went well enough to maybe keep him alive, and well, he had to go as well. Like, there was no taking that fight and going back home. He did the right thing. It just wasn't enough based on what happened early.
And you know, the really funny thing, I guess, is that it wouldn't have been, even after that awkward fight for Lambo, and you're like, oh, that wasn't exactly what he was hoping for. You know, that surround didn't really work out like you would imagine in your head. It still wouldn't have been scary if it wasn't Submarine. If that army wasn't already in Lambo's third base canceling banelings. If this is any other map, it's like, oh, that wasn't a great fight, but nah, he still got it. But to make us actually worry, I'm going to give credit to Submarine for that one. SKillous had some good control, yes. And also those force fields on the last fight were actually pretty clutch. The last 3 force fields barely providing that buffer on that third ramp, but yeah, there's just not much he was really going to be able to do because Lambo had all the cards. He had all the opportunities to use his technology, to use his surrounds, and to use his the army that can pounce, right? A little bit better than SKillous can to win this game. And now it is just about putting that nail in the coffin. He's gotten almost maxed out army. He's back to having Vipers, and SKillous doesn't really want to tap out quite yet, but he's down to 1 base mining, man.
Yeah, there's only so much you can really do, right? A few storms coming in again and again on the Roach Ravager, but it's just going to be too much. Super battery and everything. I mean, SKillous will not leave until the very, very end as Viper abducts the probe. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel that way too. I thought maybe a blinding cloud on the Stalkers might help to speed up this process, but he can abduct the probe as well, Lambo. It's okay. As we are going to see the Roach Ravager is going to come through and clean up, and well, that's going to be it. 30 supply SKillous. He is now finally defeated in this group. He will not stay undefeated.